Hello, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Elevated. Today we have a really special guest. He has been in our industry right alongside us for over 40 years. And if you haven't heard his name, I'll be surprised. Let's welcome Rick Ellis to the show today. And he's going to be sharing with us quite a bit about leadership, how to hire right in sales, and really his very interesting journey of entrepreneurship. So he started out on site as a leasing professional, just like a lot of us did. And he then decided to get into real estate, owning 2 properties that eventually grew to over 5,000 units across 3 states. And in 1985, he actually formed Ellis Consulting Group, a name now synonymous with top tier market consulting, training, and contract leasing. He also leads Ellis Home Source, a pioneering property management firm specializing in single family rentals, and the first of its kind to earn the AMO designation. He is a graduate of Abilene Christian University. Rick holds a Texas real estate broker's license and is an Eagle Scout. He lives in Coppell, Texas with his wife Diane, and do ask them if you should run into them about their beloved Cavalier Spaniels. But the most important thing about Rick is that he loves Mondays. All right, let's jump in and get started.
Hello and welcome to Multifamily Elevated. My name's Suzanne Hopson, and I am super excited to talk to you about vision, people, and execution, and how you can utilize this information to elevate you and your team and your experience in multifamily. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, giving you the latest and greatest news and content across our multifamily sector. So let's jump in, enjoy this episode of Multifamily Elevated, and enjoy the climb.
Well, without further ado, Rick, let's jump in and get started. Really excited to have you here.
It's good to be here. It really is.
Yeah, I know that we always want to press the record button prior to, because we have these wonderful conversations. And this did not disappoint. I loved us getting in and going back a few decades. That was a lot. That was a lot of fun. So thank you for that. But I'd love to introduce you to the audience for anyone that could possibly not know you yet. And just have you tell us a little bit about your journey and where you started out and, what you're doing now.
Like a lot of us in this industry, I started out somewhere else. I was a pastor at a church in California, of all places. And my wife had gotten into nursing school back in Dallas. I'm from Texas. So we moved back to Dallas, and a guy at my church in California, out of the blue, asked me, do you know somebody that we maybe could get to manage an apartment complex we bought in Dallas? And I said, I know a great guy, and I'll call you later. And I talked Mark Stevens into hiring me. And I was really just started as an assistant manager / basically porter,
Mm-hmm.
And over 5 years, we grew the company to about 5,000 units in 3 states, and it grew under me. And it was really a great experience. Learned a lot, oftentimes the hard way, by making mistakes. And then something really interesting happened. They fired me.
Oh, I didn't know this little juicy part.
And I'm proud of it. Now, what happened was the market had started to really drop, and our occupancy was in the high 90s. And the last couple of deals we bought, the total income would not even cover the debt service. We were buying so high. And as a young man, and here's something that you younger folks in the industry might hear, as a young man, I was going, guys, we're going to heck in a handbasket. There's no way that we can survive this. And that was true. That was true. But what my mistake was couching it in those terms, like I was panicking. What really needed to happen was help them, lose less money and help us ease out of these markets. So I got fired, and then I interviewed and immediately got hired for a dream job, even better. But I said, well, let me think about it. And I left. I left for a week and didn't get back to him. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I called him back and said, yes, when do I start? Well, we hired someone else.
Oh, no.
Okay, so.
Oh, no.
Well, now I really was kind of panicking and I was going, what am I going to do? So what we did was we went to Europe for a couple of weeks. Yep, that's right. I know, crazy. And the whole time in Europe, I remember being in Dam Square in Amsterdam, Dam Square, it's not a Dam Square, it's a Dam Square. And drinking my first latte and working on a business plan. Now, this is what's really strange. It was for an apartment locator service. Why? Because we used apartment locators at my company, Vestec Financial. And I used to think, what a crazy business. They send someone over, we lease them, and then we pay them a half month's rent. What an easy deal. Mm-hmm. And so we opened up J. Ellis Apartment Locators. And that's the most difficult business I ran in all my career. Apartment locating is crazy because locators are crazy. They'll admit it. We had 5 locations, and we're the largest apartment locator service in Dallas-Fort Worth. But it was crazy. And simultaneously, we started Ellis Property Management Services, EPMS. And our innovation was typed and reviewed shopping reports. That was it. That was a huge innovation. Now they weren't electronic. I mean, we typed them on an IBM selector. But at that point in the industry, shopping reports were going for like $19 a piece. And they just gave a form to somebody who hand wrote it. And then all the companies did was just send the form or fax it, if you had a fax back then, in a handwritten format with no review. So we started reviewing them, asking the shopper, for more information. And before you know it, we had 200 shops a month going. And simply because it looked great. The way that I sold them to people is I would shop my friends who I knew in the business and just walk over and give them the shopping report, typed, pretty, and they would go, wow. And so we were able to charge a whopping $29.
Way to go.
Woo-hoo.
I know they've gone up since then.
and then, I'd always done training for the association. And so some of my associates would call me about training. And then the really interesting, neat thing at that point was my former company, who had fired me, called me about an issue they had at a property. I went in and fixed the problem as a consultant. And that was my first job with them. And they actually got me into the consulting business.
Wow. That is such a great story. Oh my God.
It was cool. It was cool. And also it was kind of cool. The guy that took my place had already gotten fired. But anyway, yes, edit that.
Just to throw that.
Anyway, so that's how we got into the consulting business. And in the apartment locating side, people started coming in and saying, hey, can you, we don't have an apartment community, but we have this one condo. Can you lease it for us? And we'd lease it for them. And then they'd come back and say, hey, could you manage it for us? And so that's how all these years, and a lot of people don't know this, but Ellis Home Source has operated as a single family property management company since, 86, 87.
I had no idea about that until our mutual friend told me that. And I said, really? Fascinating.
It's always been there. For a while, it was sort of a sideline. And then it grew. And then again, serendipity, luck, blessing, whatever. In 87, 88, some way or another, we finagled the entire Freddie Mac portfolio that was in foreclosure of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we went from like 100 homes to 600 homes. And
I'm feeling that pain.
It was chaos. It was chaos. So and that's how we've I guess established the things that we do now. The apartment locator service, I will tell you, it never was the joy that some of the other things are. It's, we had at one time 27 commissioned salespeople, and these are all real estate agents, but they live on total commission. And so you can imagine that personality type and the kind of energy and fire that we had in those offices. But that really also helped me in terms of the training and those kinds of services we offered, because we had to continually, be training and encouraging and motivating these commission salespeople.
What a great story. And you just made me think of another pathway for us to go down that I think would be wonderful. And this really has to do with your sales background, but also your business development talent that you have, your training, and then also running your own business as an entrepreneur. And, I've been an advocate for a long time for sales in our industry being at the table because it's the revenue generator. And typically in our traditional models, it's been low one on the totem pole in some cases. It's getting a lot better.
Yeah, starting position. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's getting a lot better, but the skill sets that are required for someone to be successful in that role, I mean, there's a number of them that have to really be fine-tuned and to do well, especially now with all of the challenges that we have with technology and all of our different renters, their likes and desires and how they want to interact with us. It's a lot. So you've been through the whole gambit since the beginning all the way to this day, and probably are the expert on sales in our industry. So how has it changed? Have you seen like a huge change in the basic concepts of sales or?
Definitely. In the 80s, 90s, we were closing people. And now we realize that we're not really closing people. We're actually commencing the prospect. In other words, we're starting a new relationship. Even in my training now, I don't call it the close. I call it the commence. And I didn't even know what commencement meant. Remember in high school, you had that commencement service. Well, what is this anyway? But it's the beginning of a relationship. And I love, I always toy around with leasing and compare it to online dating. Because we're trying to woo the prospect, just like you would in an online dating situation. Not that I would know, and you want to put yourself out there in a very attractive way and show the real benefits of connecting with you. See, they're very similar. And then at the point you get that first text, that first inquiry, maybe even a phone call, then the goal is to woo the prospect to you. And you woo the prospect until there's that point in the relationship where commitment is the next right step. And that's when you propose and you open up the box and say, will you lease from me?
Well, I would. So there you go.
Well, but then the move-in day is what? The wedding. The wedding. It's supposed to be the most special day in the relationship. And that's the one we screw up so much. Move-in days are disastrous. But anyway, I kind of got off track here, which I can do. But in terms of how it's changed, one thing that really hasn't changed, and you're going to find a ton of people that disagree with me, but they're not right. I'm right. The sales personality still is the best leasing professional. And the better the sales personality is, skill-wise, usually the harder they are to manage. And I don't think I'm a great manager, and I even tell my team, you guys, I'm sorry, I'm not really a good leader. I tell them that, but what I'm really good at is managing salespeople. And the reason that we've been successful outside of, my belief of just being blessed is that we've learned how to tolerate, how to guide the idiosyncrasies of high producing salespeople. In our consulting company, we do a lot of contract leasing. We send someone to a property and we're there on commission. Can you imagine the kind of person that loves to go somewhere else away from family and friends and live by themselves in a strange place and lease just on commission? That kind of person is a special person, and they can be very challenging to manage. And I love them, and we've had as many as, we're a small company. We've had as many as 8 or 9 lease ups going on at one time. And then you're talking about probably 15 to 16 commission salespeople who are in different states, and all of them have some need at any moment of the day. The manager's not being, considerate, or they're not advertising enough, or these prospects are never qualified, or the apartments aren't ready, which happens. We lease so fast, we get ahead of the make ready, status. But yeah, the sales, I see a lot of times managers who are trying to fit great salespeople into a mold that they're comfortable with, but that the salesperson is not comfortable with at all. They're just a different human being. And then I see things like disasters, like this great salesperson we're going to promote to manager, and he fails and falls right on his face. And you mentioned this already. Part of the problem is we don't compensate our salespeople enough. That's why they come to me and do contract leasing, because they can make some decent money.
You're talking about role specialization, which, right people, right seat. Something I talk about all the time, because that's where it all starts. It doesn't really matter all the other things that you might have in place, great process, great company, great culture. If you don't have the right person in the seat, they're going to fail, right? And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. You're absolutely right. And yes, they are a special breed. My favorite. Did I say that out loud? I'm probably going to get in trouble for that, but everyone knows about me anyway, so it's okay. And I know they're your favorite.
They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
You probably wouldn't want them doing your accounting.
No, not that detail work. Right. Yeah. I don't ever, do you have like a personality test, or how do you find that right salesperson? Because this is where I think managers, because they really want to hire someone like them, a lot of the time, they don't really know how to hire well for that role, because it is foreign to them. They don't operate that way necessarily.
We have a webinar seminar hiring great leasing professionals. And I know that in the industry, again, I respect it too. There's all kinds of tests and different kinds of evaluation tools that you can use. But in my seminar, I jokingly share Rick's characteristics for great leasing professionals. And one of the things that I don't necessarily look for, but it doesn't bother me, is if they're late for the interview. Just 4 or 5 minutes, and they come rushing in, and they have some kind of excuse, the traffic or whatever. That is very typical of great salespeople. So I don't have a problem with that. Now, if they were going to be VP of operations, that would be a problem. The other thing is I want to kind of look at their car.
Oh.
And what I'm looking for is a new car that's messy inside. See, you get my drift?
I do.
And some salesperson's going to hear this and go, "What? You know what I'm talking about?"
Yes.
Because they're typically dressed very fashionable, but if you saw their credit card bill, it was probably maxed out. And the other thing is that they're difficult to manage in terms of paperwork or input. They don't follow the software protocol for getting all their traffic in. They may have 2 walk-ins that they never even report, and you're wondering, well, how'd they get this lease? And managers can beat them up for it. They can rant and rave about it, but they need to ask themselves, are they leasing apartments? The other thing is that typically they're a bit braggadocious. They're going to tell you, if you don't tell them how good they are, they're going to tell you how good they are. So see, these aren't the ones you typically hear. And I've had people in classes, Suzanne, that go, I would never hire someone like that. and they're the ones that are sitting there without a leasing agent. Years ago, I remember at a property in Irving, Texas, and I was working with this group as a consultant, and the manager was going to fire their best leasing person, and she was incredible, a machine. And I said, well, what's happening? Well, she's coming in late every day. Every day she comes in like not just 5 minutes, but like 9:30, 9:45. And I said, okay, wow, that's not acceptable. I'm with you. But let's ask her what's going on. And so we got her into the office, and it turns out that she's a single parent with a young child, and her mother watches the child during the day. Her mother worked at a convenience store and got off every day at 7 a.m. and then would come over to take care of her child at 8:30. Sometimes the mother had to work late, and that's why she was late. And so thank goodness, we asked, and the manager wisely changed this leasing person's hours from 9 to 5 to 10 to 6. And we actually got a later on-site professional there at the office.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the thing. If you can give a leasing person, a sales personality, a little more room to zig and zag, you're going to find that they're going to be very productive and very happy. And you'll get what you need, and that is production.
Yeah, and it seems obvious, but it's hard for people in the moment when they're desperate to hire a person for the seat, or it's someone that they know. I've had that happen. Or it's I think about this like it's a whole nother episode of communication and just how do they like to be communicated with? And what you did was brilliant. It was also the human part, the connecting part that would make that person loyal for life. And I don't know that we move so fast that sometimes that connection, we don't do the work there. There's no intention there as leaders. And so really thinking about that, you just made me, think about that intentionally, like to the surface of the top of my head of, if you really wanted to have a great team, one of the things you have to do is stop and really look at it through their lens, because the world isn't just through our own lens.
That's interesting, because one of my heroes, Seth Godin. Do you know Seth Godin?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
He says, hurry, but don't rush.
That's great.
Hurry, but don't rush. And it's really a great concept. You speed up to slow down. And what that means is that, you're intentional. You got a goal, you know where you're going, but you also realize that sometimes it's good to stop, take a breath, reboot. And Suzanne, I'm preaching to myself here.
Of course, me too. We're all a work in progress.
I am, if my team was here, that they would tell you, yeah, he does rush sometimes too much. We can't even keep up with him. And, then we want to know what happened. So, yeah, but I'm learning, after 40 years, I'm still learning.
You're humble, very humble and so knowledgeable. And I love what you're sharing. I know we talked about, what to avoid, the do's and the don'ts, but I also think this is from a human standpoint and just for team building as well, and really leaning into the strengths of the salesperson, the sales personality. That's just, it's role specialization. I know that's like a compartment, but I think it's a good one. I think that if you can match people correctly with who they innately are, then everybody's going to be happy. It's a total win-win.
It's cruel to put somebody in a position that they're not made for, and they're miserable. And again, I've seen that. I've seen so many great leasing people leave the industry because they were moved like to assistant manager of all the worst places for a sales personality, and they're just miserable, and they're working till, 8 or 9 o'clock every night because that's just not what they were made for. But they want to be promoted. They want to make more money,
Yeah. I've been in operations, my entire career, and I've always gone back to marketing and sales. And then, I go back into operations. I like to be everywhere. But the sweet spot for me took me a long time to, I think, embrace, because it didn't pay as much, like we talked about earlier. It wasn't looked upon as the position that I should be in, right? If I'm going to be successful in property management, I've got to do this, upward mobility thing. And finally, I just said, no, embrace thyself and find a company that believes in this philosophy, which is probably a good interviewing tip for anybody who's looking for a job out there and you're looking for a good company to match yourself up with. Think about that as you're interviewing them to make sure that they understand how you're hardwired. So I love it. I love it. I know we could talk for hours, and we'll probably have to have you back because there's a lot of content here. But I know we only have you for a limited time, so maybe we can dig into some of the mistakes. You mentioned early that you got fired, and
mistakes, huh?
it does, and there's a lot going on right now. There has been, I would say, over the last year or so, of just the layoffs and the quiet quitting, which is no longer quiet. There's a lot going on with people finding the right fit and companies finding the right fit under whatever circumstances or challenges they're up against. What do you do if you're a company right now looking for a great salesperson?
It's funny you mention that, because we just hired a great salesperson. Wilkie is our new business development manager, call him BDM, for our property management company. It's an interesting niche. By the way, I do want to kind of put a shout out to people that manage single family homes. Apartment people, watch out. Because it's not the the realtor that does this on the side, from her home office. Today, it's a very sophisticated and automated business, and they're looking at multifamily. So, anyway, we actually used a third party to help us recruit the salesperson, and they did do the kind of pre-interviewing that I would not have been good at. Hurry but don't rush.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was wonderful. A company called BizDev, and then we've had Wilkie for about 2 months. Now we've hired a lot of salespeople, but I think with Wilkie, this is the one that's most recent in my memory, in my mind, and we've done a great job with orienting him and giving him a chance to really understand our business. The first week he met with everyone in the company, just 7 of us, and I mean, for several hours, and got to pick our brains. We're using a series of training modules specifically for what he's going to do. Again, that's a third party, but it's worth it. And it's very expensive, because you know why? Because it works. It's proven.
Investment. It's investment.
Right. And I think also we've given him the chance to make mistakes, and we've really encouraged him to go ahead, make some appointments, go out, dig it, and he's had some tough conversations that he wasn't ready for, and it's great. He's learning that way. Right now, we're trying to also, I think, provide him the support he needs for what he's doing. What he does is he meets with individual investors and even homeowners who want to lease their home. And that sounds like a no big deal, but it's very competitive. And he's learning how to deal with objections and to present in the most desirable way, and also to anticipate things that the prospect is going to say, just like in leasing. But each of his success stories represents thousands and thousands of dollars of management fees. And so what he does is really important, and he will be compensated accordingly if as he is successful. This is not a starter position in our company.
Wow. And you've worked your whole career to elevate
Yeah.
that role, truly. And now you're just, well, you have been giving back all of this knowledge, and hope, don't forget to tell everybody how to get a hold of you at the end of this gig so that, they can learn more about your offerings and what you do and just talk to you if they want to. It's a tough market out there. So to that end, and sort of wrapping this up, because again, I think we could talk for 3 hours. I'm sure we could. What would you tell the emerging leaders that are coming up now with all of the AI technology, the speed to which we're working, our customer, our ever-changing customer? What's probably important right now in your mind as you've seen over all of this time? What do our leaders need to do differently maybe than they have before?
First of all, be careful who you're listening to learn leadership. I see a lot of leadership being taught by people who really haven't been leaders. Now, it may really be good stuff, but what I have looked for in my career is models, people I've worked for, and people I've seen who are clients that I can really admire. I'm not going to name this guy because I don't have his permission, but I've worked with a guy up in New Jersey for years, and what I see, and his people stay forever, what I see him do is create relationships. And you've heard it, it's old news, the idea of servant leadership. And it's a great seminar, Suzanne, but to really practice it, again, it takes time. And what I see him do is he expects a lot, but he also creates a relationship with his team that allows them to feel like he cares. Does he really care? I think he does. He comes across that way. But even on the days he doesn't feel it, I can see this guy creating relationships and treating people in a way that's not just civil, that builds the trust and the confidence in his followers. I did want to just put in one word about followership. Everybody wants to be a leader, but everybody can't be a leader because leaders have to have followers. And I think if you're a good leader, you need to remember that there's probably somebody you also are following, and you can model to your followers how to be a good follower by the way that you treat your leader. That makes sense? You don't ever trash the corporate office. You don't trash your supervisor. The model that you show on how you act as a follower will help the people that you lead be better followers. No one says, I want my kid to grow up and be a follower. I know it doesn't sound right, does it? But the truth is that good followers are just as important as good leaders. And I think that's sometimes where we fall short.
Rick, that was golden. And thank you for that. And it's a great reminder. It really is. And again, just tremendously grateful that you spent this time with us today. I think our listeners are going to love this. And I know you haven't promised to come back, but I'm going to make you promise at some point because, there's a lot here. Sure. And just appreciate your gifts today and sharing those with us. So how can people get a hold of you if they need to?
It's real simple, ellisconsulting.com. ellisconsulting.com. We're there 24/7.
I love it. And are you national by chance, Rick? I don't know that I asked you that question. Are you in
We go wherever someone will have us. And you know something? Since COVID, even though we're based in Irving, Texas, the majority of our work has been in the Northeast.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just, have gun, will travel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks again, Rick.
All right, Suzanne, thank you. Enjoyed it.
I'm glad. Me too.
And good luck on your new endeavor.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And remember, now just 4 more days till Monday, right?
We love Mondays.
Yeah, it's a do-over. Fresh start. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Multifamily Elevated, where we hope that you are inspired and ready to go, elevated to take on your next challenge in multifamily. So if you liked this episode, please subscribe, like, comment, and of course, share with your network. And don't forget that this was brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network that is also sharing the latest and greatest in trends, ideas, and content across our multifamily space. Until next time, keep elevating, and we'll talk soon.